the hidden threat lurking beneath Louisville rentals and how to profit from fixing it.
Let's talk about that. I'm Milton Ali.
I'm Hampton Skirlock.
And we want to welcome you to the Investor Tribe podcast.
Late night grind, got the cash in the flow. Flipping these dreams, with the portfolio grow. Brick by brick, stacking wealth in the zone. Investor Tribe, that's where the hustle is home.
Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Property Group. More on them later.
And today we're with Matt Duncan. And we're going to talk about how savvy investors navigate the water problems and foundation issues in our market.
Oh, yeah. And the average investor walks away when they discover that foundation issues are there, and only to realize that they're more pervasive than most people think. And so we have Matt Duncan here with PermaJack. Full disclosure, I've worked with them for years. I am a fan. He's one of my go-to vendors when it comes to these kinds of questions. So when Hampton and I were talking about who to bring in, I obviously thought, okay, you know what? We got to bring in my guy, Matt. So Matt Duncan, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, and Matt, how'd you get into, or what inspired you to get into, foundation, waterproofing, and start, working with, or start PermaJack, I guess?
I got you. We could do, we could probably do a whole separate podcast on that. But the quick version is I own two companies. I own a company called Biometh Management that I started in 2007, and then I own PermaJack. And so in 2007, we started Biometh because the state of Kentucky passed a law that said if meth labs are made in the state of Kentucky, then it has to be cleaned by a certified contractor. Well, there was an article in the Courier Journal. There were no certified contractors. And I'm not the smartest guy, but I looked at it. I saw what was needed to do it. I went online. I found the biggest company in the country that did meth labs, and I learned to do it. I went and trained under this guy. I'd been in the mortgage business for about 15 years. And if you remember in 2007, 2008, that's when the markets were crashing.
Oh, yes.
And so once we started doing the meth labs, I used mortgage contacts to get in touch with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. I started contacting some large banks, Wells Fargo, different property management companies. And we started working for them, cleaning up their houses. And then through our contacts, we were approached. We're like, listen, if you guys would do mold, we would keep you busy. And so I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. So we decided, I did the same thing. I figured out how to get trained to clean up mold. And so once we started doing that, things were great. We were really busy. We traveled the country. Every job, we're licensed in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. But for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, we'll travel as far. I've been as far west as Nebraska, as far south as Jacksonville, Florida, as far north as Augusta, Maine. We do a lot of jobs. But the thing with mold is you can't stop mold unless you stop the reason. Well, what's the reason?
Water.
It's always water. And so you've got two specific areas, basements, crawl spaces, and roofs. Well, I don't want to be a roofer. I had no desire to be a roofer. So we would get into it and we would have jobs, and we're talking crazy mold jobs where they needed the basement waterproofed or they had a foundation issue. And there was a particular job in Evansville, Indiana that had a bowling wall, and you couldn't stop the water unless you could put that wall back in place. And I couldn't find anybody to do it. I searched, and finally I found a company out of Jeffersonville, which I'm not going to say their name, but we all probably know who they are. They said they could do it, but it was going to be 9 months before they could get to it.
Jeez.
And I'm like, man, that's crazy.
People have babies quicker than that.
Right. But I couldn't get anybody else to do it. And so I had them come. They did the job. I waited the 9 months, but then I watched it, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty savvy. I could do this with the right training. I could figure this out. So in 2014, I approached this the same way I approached getting licensed to clean up meth labs. I found someone out there that had different supplies. I wanted to set myself apart. And I noticed PermaJack had been in Louisville. but they were not anymore. So I tracked down the main PermaJack office in St. Louis, Missouri, talked to them, and they told me, said, yeah, the guy that had been there had passed away. We don't have anybody there. And I'm like, well, what's it take to be a dealer? Because I wanted that name, and I wanted some instant recognition. And the guy's like, listen, man, why don't you come to St. Louis and meet me and we'll talk. So I went to St. Louis, met the owner of PermaJack, and he said, like, what we do are piers. We do foundation piers. We lift houses, we lift porches, we stabilize houses. That's all we do, nothing else. I'm like, man, I want to waterproof basements too. He's like, well, that's not me. Because all we do is this. I really had no desire to do piers, but I saw that there was a void in the market here. There weren't a lot of companies doing it. And so we decided to get in bed with PermaJack. We are a dealer of PermaJack. I'm not a franchise. I'm a dealer. I only use PermaJack piers. I buy all my piers from PermaJack, but on the crawl spaces and other types of projects, the waterproofing, that's something else. So we decided, what's different? What can I do different? So we found a company out of Minnesota called Safe Basements. And they had this pipe that they put in their basement waterproofing applications. And I don't know, are you a golfer?
Not a good one.
Well, yeah,
that's right.
I'm sure Milton's not good either. But,
You are correct. Yes.
When you waterproof something, nobody waterproofs anything. People water redirect. Okay, that's what you do. But there's only two reasons that doesn't work. And, when you put in drain tile, when you put pipe in a basement, you have to have a 1/4 inch fall for every 2 feet that pipe runs. You have to make sure it flows to where you're trying to take it to. If whoever installs that pipe doesn't do that correctly, then that basement will not be water redirected or waterproof. It could leak. Well, the other reason it fails is if that pipe gets clogged. So back to the golf thing, you think about how hard it would be to create drainage on a golf course green. It's a mathematical quantity because a golf course green, no two golf course greens are the same, and none of them are level. They all come up, they all come down. So in the 50s, some guy invented this stuff called waffle pipe. And it's a multi-flow pipe that works through water displacement. So instead of one pipe, it's 5 pipes. They're all smaller. They're 2 inches instead of 4 inches. They're all joined together. And this water, when you put the pipe in vertically, can actually flow up a hill. And so in my mind, I'm like, that's perfect. Because if I put that in a basement, I eliminate both problems that usually cause waterproofing to fail. I eliminate the need for slope, and I also eliminate the fact that what's more likely to clog, 1 pipe or 5.
Right.
And so that's where the company in Minnesota came in. They were the only contractor that was using this pipe. I went to Minnesota. I worked with these guys for a week, and I learned to do what they do. And so we did the same thing with the piers, PermaJack. I went to St. Louis. I did piers with them. They came here, did piers with us. So for the last 12 years, that's what we've been doing. We do piers, waterproofing, we do crawl space stabilization, but that's how PermaJack came to be. You would never call my other company Biomet to stabilize your house. We needed that presence in that name. So that's where we are.
Yeah, so there was a need, I guess, of no licensed contractors. I know City of Louisville's run into that where they did a similar thing for lead-based paint, certain remediation programs. They come up with this legislation, and then there's no one that has the licenses to do it. And then the investors are expected to go get a licensed lead removal specialist or test. And there was none around. People feel the need, got licensed, spent $20,000 on the equipment, and then they changed the regulations. So there's a lot of guys that were upset because they invest all this money and now they don't have to do the testing. So it sounds like you're seeing a need, you're filling a need. That kind of lends us gets us right to one of our sponsors at Bespoke Marketing. So when you're running a small business, you shouldn't have to be an editor, actor, and a brand content manager as well. Our friends at Bespoke Marketing can do those things for you and help you look great while you're doing what you do best. Visit them at bespokemarketing.org. Bespoke Marketing, connections tailor-made.
So can you walk us through some of the most common foundation issues that homes in this area would have? I mean, it's a lot going on when it comes to that. Can you walk us through some of the most common problems?
Sure. Like one thing is, if people took care of their gutters, I would probably be out of business. And that's the most common thing.
As simple as that.
Simple as that. Because water is the devil. And you know, every house settles. There's never been a house that didn't settle. There never will be a house that doesn't settle. Everything's going to settle. But water exasperates the problem. And most people don't take the time to make sure that their gutters are going at least 6 to 10 feet away from the house, that it's falling away from the house. You know, that they might put gutter extensions on, but then every time it rains, there's water pouring over the top of the gutters and right into one spot. Because anytime water touches something, it takes a small piece with it. And so if you've got a foundation that's settling and you add the variable of more water to it, then all you do is accelerate that. And then there comes a point in time where it could settle so much that it's never coming back without help from somewhere on the outside, somebody like me, you know, to go in and stabilize that foundation.
So it's interesting because what I've noticed here in the topography of Louisville specifically is that you have, in some areas, you have 6 to 12 inches of topsoil or soil, period. Then below that is a clay. And
Right.
so what we find is when that water hits the clay, it expands the clay. And then once we're in a drier time, what tends to happen is that it contracts.
Correct.
And it goes back. How does that affect foundation issues beyond the obvious?
Well, the big thing is, like, for example, if you build a house and, you know, the first thing you do when you build a house is you're going to excavate and you're going to get your plot, you know, surveyed, get it ready to go. You're going to tamp the soil and then you're going to pour your footers. So the footers are the basic building block for everything that you're doing. So the footers, if there's rock there, okay, hey, the whole thing, 18 to 24 inch wide footer around the perimeter of that structure is on rock. Where's it going to go? It's not going to go anywhere. You know, it's going to stay there. But that's not always the case. Every neighborhood isn't rock. You know, there are spots where you might have 3/4 of your house is on rock, but then the rest of it is not. And then that rock is another 10 feet below. You also see houses where one of the biggest problems we see is they'll dig out a basement. They stop at a certain depth because that's where they hit rock. Okay,
Right.
There's the rock. Well, then they take the garage. They don't put the basement under the garage. They put the garage at a 3 foot, you know, down depth, whereas the house is at 15 feet down. Well, there's no rock under that garage. So the basement in the house stays steady, but then the garage starts to settle. And then you see the stair step cracks. You see the heaving in the floor, the garage floor split down the middle. And I know you've seen it 1,000 times.
Yes.
And what they do, they dug it out. They took all that fill, tossed it where they're going to build the garage. Then they hauled it off, said they tamped it, and then they built the garage on top of it. Now, back to your point about the soil. I mean, lately, the last several years, I mean, the country is, I don't know if I believe in climate change or not, but I know that we've had crazy climate. And so you have these periods of wet. We've had the wettest spring ever in Louisville this year. So you're 100% right. All that soil is expanded right now. Well, every year, the last 3 years, we've gone through a month of dry. Well, when that happens, that dirt under that footer, now it shrinks up and it's like an accordion underneath that footer. And it's moving, compacting, contracting. So the house isn't moving every day. It's moving when you have these periods of wet or dry. It's like a stalactite, stalagmite situation. It's time. It's drip, drip, drip. It might move 1/4 of an inch every year, might move 1/8 of an inch, but then we get one dry summer, and the next thing you know, this thing's really moving. Like I had a lady recently. She had a garage, and the garage was detached, and it was falling apart. Man, like you could just see it. Well, what happened to her was her insurance company sent a drone by, completely unbeknownst to her. And she gets a letter in the mail with pictures of her garage taken by a drone that says you have 90 days to either tear down the garage, repair the garage, or we are canceling your insurance. She didn't even know. You know, she knew the garage. They didn't use the garage. They kept boxes. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? But now you're under the gun because nobody wants an insurance cancellation on their record. You get canceled by an insurance company for homeowners, it makes you pretty damn hard to insure. You're going to have a lot of problems. Your rates are going to be high for the next 5 to 10 years. It's a problem. And so the garage was big. It was a 3-car garage. So to demo it was going to be $15,000, $16,000, you know, just to demo it. And so then we come back, I could fix it for 9 or 10. That's what we did. We fixed it. They got the pictures. She kept her insurance. So like, you might not be concerned about it. People might be saying, hey, my house is fine. I'm not worried about it. That crack's been there for 5 years. Maybe it's getting bigger, but there are other variables out there with AI, with the drones. You never know when your insurance company is going to show up and say, hey, fix it. Well, then nobody wants to have to do something. That's when prices go up. You panic. And there are a lot of companies out there that will see that it's blood in the water like a shark, and they're going to try to take advantage of it.
Yeah, you don't want the insurance case cancellation. The other thing that I wanted to go back to is a public service announcement. Matt was saying, clean your gutters, put those extensions on, get the water away from the house. You can't really stop it, but you want to redirect it. Try to solve that problem.
Yeah, we don't want to put you out of business. However, I thought that was telling in that is so, if we just did better water management around gutters and making sure that we direct that water away. I know that there is recommendations that when you have downspouts that go out, that you want to get that water 6 feet from your home. So it's a full 6 feet. And so it doesn't happen.
At least 6 feet or into where it runs away from the house. Because if you get it 6 feet and it runs back in, you're not doing that. But we've seen that at properties too.
All the time.
You see the water issues. But how is technology? I know you've been doing this for a while, but how is technology? Have there been any new improvements that have made jobs easier or more efficient, or how's technology impacted the industry?
As far as actually performing the job, the technology, there's no brand new jackhammer that works without somebody holding it. I wish there was. Yeah. But there are better quality tools. There are better quality tools, like laser levels are really, like before when we went to a house, you'd have to like sight it in and look out there, go 100 yards away, but now we can take a laser level, and I can put a laser level in your room, shoot it at a 360 degree, line, and I can measure and tell you exactly what the difference is in every corner in that room. That is a handy tool. And then as far as like the estimating, like we do all of our estimates on the spot with an estimating program that's like, it's customized. I customized it, but like it's made for contractors like me, where all my products are in there. I can draw your house to scale, and I can do that bid within 5 minutes. I'm at your house, I'm drawing it as I'm going, and I can get it done for you quickly. That's where it's helped us the most. And then I can send that bid to my guys. They can see the pictures. They can see what I see when they're doing the repair on your house. So that's where it's really helped us the most, is on the front end and then on the execution.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I know for a fact that you are able to send me, it used to be like about 8 years ago, you would send me things and it would take 24 to 48 hours to get me a quote back. Nowadays, over the last, I would say 18 months, you have gotten me quotes like literally same day.
Yeah, but we can do a quote right now in 5 minutes.
Wow. And so, so technology is advanced, well beyond, what we've been able to see. And managing real estate can be difficult already. And you can get one thing off your plate by reaching out to my friends at Liberty Mutual. And I have a deal with Liberty Mutual that I can pass on to you for their great rates. You can click the link that's in the description, and you can call 1-800-266-0644 and mention Milton Ali, Kentucky, 444-689 for your free quote today.
Are there any projects? I know we talked a little bit before we started. Any projects that stand out to you either because they were very interesting or complex, or the impact on the homeowner? I'm sure you got lots of stories from being in lots of houses and under lots of houses as well. But what are some things that really stick out to you?
He's been under a couple of your houses.
Probably.
I bought a couple houses from you, and I had to immediately call Matt and say, hey, man, can you come check this out? And the cool thing is look, man, when I call, he can be like, hey, I'm in the middle of, I'm in Taylorsville. But yeah, I can meet you in the South End. Just give me a couple hours. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. Like I was, think recently, but I was in a house on Friday in Elizabethtown in a crawl space. And you walk into this house, it's a 50 by 30, 1,500 square foot ranch, nice house. And you've got a flipper which has done a great job. It's got granite countertops, it's got pretty floors. Everything looks really good. And but they're worried about the crawl space. Like I go in the crawl space, there's previous termite damage. Every single floor joist in that crawl space is rotten.
Yeah.
Every single one. And we're talking 16 inches apart on a 50-foot long house. I can't do the math that quick in my head, but we're talking 100 floor joists that you're trying to replace. And so like, that's the thing that puzzles me is you have these investors out there that they'll spend this money, man, and they'll get that house looking good, but they don't start where they need to start. You got to start from the ground up. So now I called the realtor. I said, well, good news is you made the top 10. She goes, what top 10? I goes, top 10 worst crawl spaces I've ever been in my life. Because you've got the termite damage, but then also there's standing water through there. The support columns look like a Jenga game. You've got a block, 2 bricks, piece of wood, 2x4 flat. That's how the whole house is being supported. And to think that nobody's going to see it. We did one this summer in Old Louisville where the person who was flipping it decided they walled off all the entrances to the crawl. They made it to where you couldn't get in it. Well, the people buying it said, listen, we need access. We want to get in. We need to be able to cut a hole. So they get permission to cut a hole. This contractor had taken all the fill from in the house, like any trash stuff, just tossed it in the crawl space.
Oh gosh.
And then he blocks off the door thinking nobody's going to go in it. And obviously they lost. They're like, well, it's not that bad. Come on, man. Would you buy a house that you can't even get in a crawl? And people don't think about it, but somebody out there buys those houses and then they get screwed. A lot of home inspectors, I have a lot of respect for home inspectors for a lot of them, but home inspectors know a little about a lot, but they only know a lot about whatever their specialty is. You see what I'm saying? And so like every home inspector has hot buttons, and if you're a realtor like Milton who's experienced, you probably know what the hot buttons are. But to get your foundation looked at, you need somebody that does that for a living. And so we do go out. If it's in Louisville, I'll do it at no charge. We'll come out and give you an opinion, and we'll say, okay, this is what I think you need to fix. But if you are interested in getting into real estate investing, that's where you got to start from the ground up. And the ground up on a house is the foundation. That's number one. If the foundation's bad, your whole deal is going to be bad.
And I want to go back because what you said there surprised me. I was glad to hear it. I want to be sure you said for our listeners, or if you're in Louisville, you guys will do a free if you've got concerns with your foundation,
right? Call
you guys. You'll do a free analysis, free estimate on and tell people what's wrong with what they're dealing with.
Exactly.
That's great. So, what are some ways? How would people know they need to be concerned? Or is there certain things to look for, or how would you help homeowners spot early warning signs of foundation issues?
Well, like foundation, the number one thing, if it's a brick house, the stair step cracks in the bricks are a tell. And that's an easy one. I mean, just walking the perimeter of your house, looking to see if you see those cracks. One crack doesn't necessarily mean it's a foundation problem. What we're looking for is what we call relative cracks. For example, if you're on the side wall of the house and there's a crack, is there another house on the back wall that's adjacent to it? And if that's the case, then you usually have a piece of that house that's moving, or that footer's probably broken somewhere. So it's like a broken egg, and you can pull that shell right off. The thing you could do, like if everybody, we talked about the gutters. If you, like I said before, every house settles. If you were to take a laser level and scope your house and take measurements of each corner of your house and know, for example, it's 32 inches from the laser level to the floor here. It's 33 there. I've got a plus 1 inch. And then the other corner is 33 and a half, plus 1.5, whatever. Okay, that's your baseline. You measure that once a year, that number should always be the same. But if that number changes, then you've got movement. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that coin is, let's say that number doesn't change, and you've been doing this for 5 years. You've been documenting it. You've been taking pictures. Well, you call Milton to list your house, and you've got a crack outside, and the buyer wants you to fix it. We'll say, well, listen, man, I've been taking measurements of this house for 5 years. I've got the documentation. It hasn't moved. That crack is stable. You just killed that. Now you don't have to pay for that repair. Like I'm about people getting repairs when they need to be done, but I'm not about just doing things to do them to make money. But when you're buying a house, if there is no documentation, if there is no history there, then I'm going to tell you, you got to fix it, because the problem is that person buying that house doesn't have any insurance that it is a problem or it's not a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have to fix it now, because what if it does become a problem in 2 years?
Yeah. So what's the difference between stabilization and corrective measures? So when you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Most people, homeowners, buyers, sellers, have conversations and they want you to come in and make things the way they used to be versus coming in and stabilizing where things are. Can you speak to that and kind of help us out?
Yes. So we'll go back. We'll stick with Piers for now to make it make sense. But
Yeah.
For example, let's say you've got a house, like we did a house over in Iroquois Park, where the guy wanted it perfect. He wanted everything level. Okay. Well, this house had settled. Some corners were 3 inches down, some were 4 inches down. Now, for me to level this, like I'm going to have to excavate the entire outside of the property, pretty much, because you're going to want to try to lift this thing. Now, if I'm stabilizing, I can just put my piers where I want to put them, and then I can drive that pier till I hit rock. I'm good. Now, if I'm trying to lift, then anything that's on there is going to be hanging up my lifting process. That's why I have to excavate more. So it's going to cost you more. But so what happens is when you stabilize, you drive the pier till you hit rock. Like I said, low bearing strata, you're good. When you lift, you drive till you hit rock. And then once you hit rock, then you increase the pressure and you use the leverage of that rock to pick that house up. Now, you can't just do one spot at a time, because that footer's usually solid. You have to do sections. So we're trying to lift 4 or 5 piers at a time. And when you do that, let's say the house is 50 years old. So it took it 50 years to get to the point it's at. And you want me to put it back in one day. There's going to be damage. And you've got windows that settled with the house and are working fine. When I'm done, they might not work, because we have now taken them and shifted the way it's supposed to be. Garage door that works isn't going to work because it's shifted with the house. It's settled with the house. It adjusted as it went. You see what I'm saying? If it's a porch we lift, I can lift the corner. We can lift whatever, but it's not as easy as people think, because you're using, it's like you're trying to pole vault, but you can't see the end of the pole. The pole's 20 feet underground. And that's what I'm using for leverage. Sometimes to get it to lift, we got to bounce the house. We got to take it up like you got a car hung up in the mud. I'll lift it. It stops. I'll drive it back down. And what do you think? We're doing your whole house that way.
Right.
But this guy, some people are so obsessed. That's what they want. That's what I can do it. But it's going to cost you a little more, and we'll get it there. 90% of the time, you're better off to go ahead and stabilize it. Guarantee yourself it'll never move. And then you can cosmetically make anything look the way you want, as long as you know it's not moving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can use different levels of subfloor. You can use a 1/4 inch here, 1/8 of an inch there. Cosmetically, for a fraction of the cost of what it's going to cost you to pay me to lift it all the way up.
Yeah, we don't like to lift heavy things unless we absolutely have to, but we do want to shout out our socials. You can find us at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X on @INV Tribe. Thanks so much. But getting back to the lifting or stabilizing versus correcting.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing you share is that it takes a lot to quote unquote fix a house and restore it to normal. How do you navigate the unevenness in a lot of those homes that are in the South End? Could be Iroquois Park, could be other Windsor Forest. I mean, there's a lot of different neighborhoods that have those rolling hills and has that issue. How do I stabilize the house? Do I have to go in and readjust floor joists? Because you're right, 40 years, 50 years of changes cannot be corrected overnight. And it actually brings more damage to the property than good. Like now you have to replace all the drywall. Now you have to tuck point the brick. Now you have to do all these other
windows
corrective. The windows
back in line. Yeah.
Correct. And so how does one get the house to be even, because I can't sell the house if it's uneven, right? Or if it is uneven, I can show them, look, PermaJack did the work. This house is stable, but it's not necessarily as even.
Yeah. So there's different animals there. So the first part is, all right, we talked about the footers. Footers are your basic building block for the house.
Yes.
So we get the footers to make sure that they never move again. And we get, what we're going to do, we lift. Every house gets a little bit of lift. But it depends on how bad it is. But we're going to lift as much as we can until we are concerned that it's going to start breaking drywall or breaking floor joists. We'll get it to where we want it to be. And then when I tell you it's time to stop, it's probably time to stop. Now, that's the footer. That doesn't take care of the middle. You know what I'm saying? The footers are going to, like if we're picking up this table, and you're picking it up just on the edges, if the table wasn't as completely solid, the middle wouldn't go with it. You know what I'm saying? The longer the house is, the bigger the house is, it's harder to do that. That's where we might have to come in and add some stabilization jacks on the inside, some steel posts spaced strategically apart that we can use to raise the center beam, or we might add ancillary beams in to lift the rest of the flooring up to get that as level as possible. Now, those you're going to have access to, because if they're either going to be in a crawl or a basement, so those can be tightened. And my recommendation on those is similar to the Piers. We get it as tight as we can, but then we can adjust those. And it's like braces on teeth. They don't put your teeth in, when your teeth are straightened, they don't do it all in one day. If you do it in one day, all your teeth will fall out. You've moved the ribs too far. It's the same with a house. You get it as tight as you can, and they tighten your braces. And then you go back in 3 or 4 weeks and they tighten them again. And then you get to where you want to be. And that's what you do with stabilization jacks, is we can tighten it as tight as we can. But then we come back in 60 days and we tighten them again. And then we come back and tighten them again. You see what I'm saying? You can get to where you want to go. You can get it there. But you're taking like a 16-foot floor joist that has been warped in the middle and it's sitting there. We put a jack in the middle and we've lifted it up. But if you lift it all the way up, you're going to break the floor joist. So you have to lift it as much as you can, and you come back, lift it again, then you'll get there. But in the short run, cosmetically with subfloors, they do this thing. Once you know the floor joists aren't moving anymore, they're stable, that you can jump on them, then you can take your subfloor and you can make it level cosmetically. You can use you can put Luan on top of OSB, whatever you need to do. You could use self-leveling concrete. I'm not a fan. But you could, if it's a actual garage floor, then yeah, you could mud jack that. You could foam jack it to get it back to level once the footers are fixed, or you could actually remove that concrete and re-pour it, knowing now it won't. But
and you're throwing out some terms that I'm you said mud jack, foam jack. If you have any jack, they just need to call you. Or so simply terms. I knew the stair step crack. But going back to the stair step crack, it goes on, kind of looks like steps, but when you see that, I was told it happens, houses settle, as you're saying. But what really is a cause of concern is if it's breaking the brick. If it's a stair step crack and they're actually cracking the brick, that takes a tremendous bit of force to do that, doesn't it?
Real estate investing has gotten a lot harder, right? Interest rates are high. There's a lot fewer buyers. Material prices have gone up. Labor rates have gone up. And there's just a lot of uncertainty in the market. And the solution for moving forward is to get some clarity. And so that's why Freedom Property Group is offering a class called Financial Freedom Accelerator to show you how to find deals in every market, including this one, and to be able to move forward confidently with your next investment. You can find out more on our website. You can email me at eric@fpg-ky.com, or you can call or text at 502-921-3989.
Yeah, to break through the brick or the block, it does take more force. Because sometimes it could be a crappy mortar job.
Right.
But those cracks are. But if the brick itself is broken, then yeah, it took some force, and that means that footer's dropped. Okay. And so the brick didn't come with the footer. Now it's settled and separated.
Gotcha. And what type of warranty do you provide, or somebody's selling house or they had this work done by PermaJack? Does that transfer to the next owner? How long is the warranty on your services? And I know that's important in some of these real estate transactions.
So Piers come with a 30-year transferable warranty. You can transfer it as many times as you want.
30 years.
And no fee to transfer. Something I tell people to be leery of. There are some companies out there that want to charge you a fee to transfer, or they'll call you and say, oh, you should have transferred that within 60 days of buying the house. Like me personally, I don't care who owns the house. What I care about is the address. And the address is how I file things. That warranty goes with it. 30 years for Piers, 20 years for crawl space jacks or basement jacks, and lifetime for basement worker.
Lifetime water. Okay.
transfer. Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. And so I have worked with you over the years, and one of the things that I've noticed is you guys are, super responsive, super good. I had a crisis at a house that I was listing recently, and you guys were kind of Johnny on the spot. Within 1 week, we had to delay because we discovered a problem. I had to delay listing for about a week, but you guys were able to come in, take care of it. I was up in about a week and a half. We had to do some cleanup, and then we're good. We're in phenomenal shape. So I definitely appreciate that. Just want to acknowledge that, and also just want to get a little bit, one last nerdy question before we wrap here, and that is, what are your recommendations on if someone has a basement and you're putting piers in a basement and you discover that it cracks the concrete? How do you navigate that? And what are the suggestions on how to work through some of that?
So if it's piers and it cracks, the concrete's probably already cracked if you're using piers. But like a lot of these old houses in Louisville, like in old Louisville, that concrete slab, like in a brand new house today, the concrete slab is going to be 4 inches thick. Okay. So you go down to Butchertown, those slabs are 1 inch thick. Ooh, they're paper thin. Mm-hmm. And so they're not strong enough to support a jack. So if you put a steel post on top of that, it's going to compress and it's going to break it. So what we need to do in situations like that is we need to pour footers to get the strength underneath that steel post to hold it in place while we're doing the work, and after the work's done to keep it in place. So that's something you have to watch out for. If you do have cracks, like a lot of times, like because piers, if you do them on the outside, you can lift, but you still might have to excavate more. If you do them on the inside of a basement, you can't get any lift. All you can do is stabilize. Because if you're doing on the inside, you're trying to pick up that footer and everything attached to it on the outside. So if I'm going to excavate on the outside anyway, why wouldn't I do the pier on the outside?
Right.
But sometimes I will do them on the inside if they're already just wanting to stabilize to begin with, and they've already got some cracks. We'll kill two birds with one stone, because I've got to cut a 3 foot by 3 foot hole to do the pier. Then I'll just pour their concrete back, and then all the cracks are gone. You see what I'm saying? And so that's one way to look at it. We can just do it all at one time. But like we did one of the biggest jobs we ever did. There's a commercial building. I won't say the exact building because I have to ask the owner, but it's out off Outer Loop. We did 105 piers on this commercial building. And gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, and you can imagine it cost a lot of money. And these were, there were dentist office in there. There were storefronts, and you could walk into these storefronts and the shelves were leaning because it was so bad. Now, we had an engineering, we had a geological engineering report, and this property had been built back in the 60s. It was built on all shale, and they knew it. And I guess maybe the engineer at the time thought the shale would hold it, but that was the problem. Shale is not load-bearing strata. Shale will shift and move. Now, it was a heck of a job, man. It was a heck of a job because you can't dig the shale with a shovel. I was still having to bust it up because it's strong enough. I couldn't shovel it, but I had to jackhammer it. So it took us 3 weeks to do this. And we had allocated 2 weeks. And but once we were done, we still had issues with the floors being unlevel in some of the middle of these storefronts. And we knew that was going to happen. And so we tag teamed this with another company, and I'll say their name, A1 Concrete, who I'm a big fan of, because they do mud jacking and foam jacking. And I don't do that. We work together. They leveled the floors, I leveled the footers, and you had this building back to perfect.
So if anybody ever tells you to build on shale, you say, "Oh, shale, no." You stay away from the shale. I heard you want to live paycheck to paycheck. Oh, wait, you don't? No. Join us each week on the Investor Tribe podcast, Wednesday at 1, and learn how to build up your passive income.
And so what we want to do, Matt, we want to thank you for coming by, you are a member of the tribe now. All right. And so we want to thank you for coming on out, hanging out with us today, educating the tribe members. And we just thank you so much for coming by today.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, a lot of good information. I mean, I'm going to go and check my gutters. I'm not going to get up there, with, get gutters checked, extensions put on properties, because simple solutions can save you big bucks. And,
I mean, I found that to be extraordinary, to be able to the preventative maintenance could stop, Matt from actually having to come by your house, because it's not a call you want to make. It's a call you have to make. Right. And so I think it's super cool to be able to have people to talk about these things. And as investors, that can impact your bottom line in a tremendous way.
Yeah. And then the free, inspection, if someone's got foundation concerns, to be able to give you a call for our listeners. That's great. And they put their mind at ease, or you can give them the solutions. So we greatly appreciate that. So I was impressed with the warranties too. 20 years, 30 years, lifetime. These aren't 90-day, 1-year warranties. This is a long time or lifetime, which hopefully is a long time for everybody here.
We love that. Yes. We love that. And so we want to make sure that you can follow us on all of our socials. We're on Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, at IMB Tribe on everything. And I'm Milton Ali.
I'm Hampton Scurlock.
And we'll catch you on the flip side of the Investor Tribe.
The Investor Tribe podcast is brought to you by the Investor Tribe, all rights reserved, featuring Hampton Scurlock and Milton Aldi, executive producer Drew Cookenmaster, produced and distributed by Bespoke Marketing.